Jake Miller sat in the back row of his physics class at Stanford University, trying to look normal. He was 22 years old and one of the smartest students on campus. Everyone knew him as the guy who always got perfect scores on tests. What they did not know was his secret. Jake could see things that other people could not see. He could feel energy around him like invisible waves in the air. The strange ability started when Jake was just 12 years old. He was taking a math test and feeling really frustrated. The numbers on the paper looked fuzzy and his head hurt. Jake closed his eyes and wished he could understand the problems better. When he opened his eyes again, something amazing happened. He could see glowing lines of light around the numbers. The lines showed him how the math worked. They showed him the answers too. At first, Jake thought he was going crazy. He told his mom about the lights, but she said it was just his imagination. So Jake kept quiet about it. He learned to control the ability over the years. When he needed help with homework, he would let the lights appear. When he was around other people, he would make them go away. Now Jake was in college studying physics and computer science. He was working on his doctorate degree, which meant he was doing very advanced research. Jake spent most of his time in the university lab, working with expensive machines that studied tiny particles called quantum particles. These particles were so small that regular rules of physics did not always work on them. One day, Jake was alone in the lab working late, at night. He was trying to measure some quantum particles, but the machine was not working right. The readings kept coming out wrong. Jake felt frustrated, just like when he was 12 years old taking that math test. Without thinking, he let his special ability turn on. Suddenly, Jake could see the quantum particles like tiny sparks of light floating in the air. He could see how they moved and danced around each other. More importantly, he could somehow make them move the way he wanted them to move. Just by thinking about it, Jake could change where the particles went and how they behaved. The machine started working perfectly. The readings were better than anything Jake had ever seen before. They were better than what the machine should have been able to detect. Jake realized something incredible. His ability was not just about seeing energy or solving math problems. He could actually control the smallest pieces of matter in the universe. Jake started doing secret experiments. When no one else was around, he would practice moving quantum particles with his mind. He discovered that he could make them do impossible things. He could make two particles in different places act like they were connected, even when they were far apart. He could predict exactly how particles would behave before they actually did anything. For weeks, Jake kept his discovery secret. He did normal research during the day when other students and professors were around. At night, he would do his real research. Jake started to wonder if other people might have the same ability. He began studying human brain patterns and quantum physics together. What he found shocked him. Jake discovered that human brains naturally created tiny quantum fields. Most people never noticed these fields because they were very weak. But in some people like Jake, these fields were much stronger. Jake found old research papers that mentioned strange things happening around certain people throughout history. Scientists had always dismissed these stories as fake or imaginary, but Jake now realized they might have been real. Jake found evidence that suggested humans had always had this ability, but it had been sleeping inside them for thousands of years. Long ago, when humans first evolved, they lived near special crystals that gave off quantum energy. This energy slowly changed human brains over many generations. The ability to sense and control quantum particles became part of human DNA, but it stayed hidden most of the time. Jake wrote down all his discoveries in a private notebook. He created computer programs to help him understand the quantum patterns better. He was careful to hide his real work from everyone else. When people asked about his research, Jake would show them fake data that looked normal. But Jake made a mistake. His research advisor, Professor Linda Hayes, was very smart and very observant. She noticed that Jake's official research results were sometimes different from what the lab equipment recorded. The machines showed readings that were far more accurate than they should have been. Professor Hayes could not understand how Jake was getting such perfect results. Professor Hayes tried to figure out what Jake was doing. She thought maybe he was cheating somehow, or using equipment that was not allowed. She asked Jake to explain. his methods, but Jake gave her answers that did not make sense. He said he had developed new ways to calibrate the machines, but he could not show her exactly how he did it. Professor Hayes became worried. She had worked with government research programs before. She knew that certain types of scientific discoveries could be dangerous if they fell into the wrong hands. Advanced quantum research could be used to create powerful weapons or break computer security systems. If Jake had discovered something important and was hiding it, the government needed to know about it. Professor Hayes decided to report her concerns to her contact at the Department of Energy. She sent an email describing the strange results in Jake's research. She mentioned that Jake seemed to be hiding his real methods and that his quantum measurements were impossibly accurate. The Department of Energy took the report seriously. They forwarded it to the FBI, which had a special department for investigating scientific anomalies that could affect national security. Within hours, Jake Miller's name was added to a list of people who needed to be watched. Jake had no idea that his secret was about to be discovered. He continued his research, not knowing that government agents were already starting to investigate him. The young man who had spent years hiding his incredible ability was about to learn that some secrets are too big to keep hidden forever. As Jake worked alone in the lab that night, making quantum particles dance in the air around him, he felt proud of his discoveries. He believed he was close to understanding something amazing about human potential. He did not know that his research had already attracted the attention of people who might not understand what he was trying to accomplish. The next phase of Jake's life was about to begin, and it would be far more dangerous and exciting than anything he had experienced before. FBI agent Kate Morrison worked in a special department that most people did not know existed. Her job was to investigate strange scientific discoveries that might be dangerous to the country. She had been doing this work for 8 years and had seen many cases of people trying to steal technology or sell secrets to foreign governments. When Kate received the file about Jake Miller from Stanford University, she thought it would be another boring case. The report said a student was getting impossible results in quantum physics experiments. Kate assumed Jake was probably cheating on his research or stealing data from other scientists. She had seen cases like this many times before. But when Kate looked at Jake's research data more carefully, she realized this case was different. The numbers were too perfect. The quantum measurements were more accurate than the best machines in the world could produce. Either Jake had access to secret military technology, or something very strange was happening. Kate was assigned to work with her partner, Agent Ryan Blake. Ryan was younger than Kate and had only been with the FBI for 3 years. He was good with computers and surveillance equipment. Kate and Ryan made a good team because Kate understood science and Ryan understood technology. The agent started watching Jake from a distance. They put tiny cameras around the university physics building. They monitored Jake's phone calls and emails. They followed him when he left campus. At first, everything looked normal. Jake went to classes, worked in the lab, and hung out with friends like any other college student. But when Kate and Ryan watched Jake work in the lab late at night, they saw things that made no sense. Through the security cameras, they could see Jake working with expensive quantum physics machines. The strange thing was that the machines seemed to work better when Jake was around them. Results that should have taken hours of careful work happened in just minutes when Jake was in the room. Kate had studied physics in college before joining the FBI. She knew that quantum experiments were very difficult and unpredictable. Even the best scientists in the world could not control quantum particles the way Jake seemed to do. Kate started to think that Jake might have abilities that were not normal for humans. One night, Kate was watching the lab cameras when she saw something incredible. Jake was working alone with a machine that studied quantum entanglement. This was one of the most advanced and difficult experiments in all of physics. Jake was not touching any controls on the machine. He was just standing near it and looking at the display screen. But the machine was working perfectly, producing results that should have been impossible. Kate called Ryan over to watch the cameras with her. They both saw Jake somehow making the machine do things without touching it. The quantum particles inside the machine were behaving in ways that violated the basic laws of physics. Kate had never seen anything like it in her career. Meanwhile, Jake was starting to realize that something was wrong. His special ability to sense quantum fields was picking up strange signals around campus. He could feel electronic devices that were watching him. Jake noticed the same people appearing near the library, the cafeteria, and his apartment building. These people looked like they were trying to be invisible, but Jake's quantum senses could detect them easily. Jake became more careful about when and where he used his abilities. He only practiced his quantum manipulation when he was completely alone and late at night. But even when he was being careful, Jake could feel that people were watching him. The situation became more complicated when Jake's roommate and best friend, Alex Turner, accidentally discovered Jake's secret. Alex was a computer science student who shared an apartment with Jake near the campus. Alex was a good friend who had known Jake since their first year of college. One evening, Alex was trying to fix his laptop computer. The machine had crashed and would not start up again. Alex had important homework files on the computer and was getting very frustrated. Jake offered to help, but Alex said the computer was completely broken and probably needed to be thrown away. Jake felt sorry for his friend. Without thinking carefully, Jake decided to use his quantum abilities to fix the laptop. He touched the computer and let his quantum senses examine the electronic circuits inside. Jake could see that some of the tiny connections had been damaged. Using his mind, Jake carefully repaired the quantum-level damage in the computer's circuits. The laptop immediately started working again, but it was not just working normally. The computer was running faster and more efficiently than it ever had before. Programs that used to run slowly were now lightning fast. The display screen was brighter and clearer. Even the battery life was much better than before. Alex stared at the laptop in amazement. He knew that computers did not fix themselves like that. He also knew that Jake had somehow made it happen. Alex asked Jake how he had fixed the computer so well, but Jake could not give a good explanation. Jake tried to say he had just cleaned the connections, but Alex was too smart to believe that story. Kate and Ryan were monitoring Jake's communications when they intercepted some text messages between Jake and Alex. The messages suggested that Jake was sharing his secret abilities with other people. This made the FBI agents very worried. If Jake really had some kind of advanced technology or special abilities, he might be planning to share them with foreign spies or terrorists. Kate decided it was time to take action. She reported to her supervisor that Jake Miller was definitely hiding something important and potentially dangerous. The supervisor authorized Kate to move to the next phase of the investigation. They would start following Jake more closely and preparing to question him directly. But Kate did not know that Jake's quantum abilities allowed him to sense when people were getting closer to him. Jake could feel the electromagnetic signatures of the FBI surveillance equipment getting stronger. He knew that whoever was watching him was about to make their move. Jake realized that his quiet life as a graduate student was about to end. The secret he had kept hidden for 10 years was finally going to be discovered. Jake just hoped that when the truth came out, the people who found him would understand that he was not a threat to anyone. The morning started like any other day for Jake Miller, but his quantum senses were telling him something big was about to happen. As he walked across campus toward the physics building, Jake could feel unusual electromagnetic activity in the air. There were more electronic devices around than normal, and they all seemed to be focused on him. Jake had been expecting this day for weeks. He knew that whoever was watching him would eventually decide to make contact. Jake had prepared for this moment by organizing all his research notes and deciding exactly what he would tell them. He hoped they would be reasonable people who could understand that he was not a threat to anyone. Agent Kate Morrison and Agent Ryan Blake had spent all night planning their operation. They had a full tactical team ready to move in case Jake tried to run or fight back. Kate was nervous because she had never dealt with someone who might have supernatural abilities. She did not know what to expect when they finally confronted Jake. At 7 in the morning, Kate gave the signal for her team to move. FBI agents surrounded the physics building from all sides. They blocked every exit and entrance. Kate and Ryan entered through the main door with their weapons ready, followed by 6 other agents in full tactical gear. But when they reached Jake's laboratory, they found him sitting calmly at his desk, drinking coffee and reading a scientific journal. Jake looked up at them with a small smile and said hello as if he had been expecting them. He did not seem surprised or scared at all. Kate was confused by Jake's calm reaction. She had expected him to panic or try to destroy evidence. Instead, Jake seemed almost relieved that they had finally come to talk to him. Kate kept her gun pointed at Jake but did not feel like he was dangerous. Jake slowly stood up from his chair and raised his hands to show he was not holding anything. He told Kate and Ryan that he had been waiting for them to arrive. Jake said he knew they had been watching him for weeks, and he understood why they were concerned about his research. Ryan was suspicious of Jake's calm behavior. He thought Jake might be planning to attack them or escape somehow. Ryan told Jake to get on the ground and put his hands behind his head. But Jake politely asked if he could show them something first that would explain everything. Kate was curious about what Jake wanted to show them. Against Ryan's advice, she decided to let Jake demonstrate whatever he was talking about. Kate kept her gun ready and told Jake to move very slowly and not touch anything dangerous. Jake walked over to one of his quantum physics machines. He explained to Kate and Ryan that what they were about to see might be hard to believe, but it was completely real. Jake said he was not using any hidden technology or secret weapons. Everything he could do came from natural human abilities that most people did not know they had. Jake turned on the quantum machine and let it warm up. Then he stepped back about 3 feet from the machine and looked at Kate and Ryan. Without touching any controls or buttons, Jake somehow made the machine start working. The display screens lit up and began showing complex quantum measurements. Kate and Ryan watched in amazement as Jake controlled the machine using only his mind. He made quantum particles move in patterns that should have been impossible. He created quantum entanglement between particles that were in different parts of the room. Most impressively, Jake made all the electronic equipment in the room work better just by concentrating on it. But Jake was not finished with his demonstration. He had noticed that Kate and Ryan were carrying electronic equipment like radios, phones, and recording devices. Jake wanted to show them that he could affect their equipment too, but without causing any damage. Jake focused his attention on the FBI agent's electronic devices. Very gently, he used his quantum abilities to temporarily disable them. All the radios stopped working. The phones shut down. Even the recording equipment turned off. But Jake was careful not to break anything permanently. Kate felt her radio go silent and realized that Jake had somehow turned off all their electronic equipment. She was amazed, but also worried. If Jake could disable their equipment so easily, what else could he do? Kate wondered if Jake might be more dangerous than she had thought. Jake saw the worried look on Kate's face and quickly turned all the equipment back on. The radios started working again. The phones came back to life. Jake wanted to show Kate and Ryan that he had complete control over his abilities and would never use them to hurt anyone. Jake then began to explain his story. He told Kate and Ryan about discovering his abilities when he was 12 years old. He described how he had spent years learning to control them and hide them from other people. Jake explained his research into quantum physics and his discovery that other humans might have similar abilities. Kate listened to Jake's explanation with growing amazement. As someone who had studied physics, she understood how incredible Jake's abilities really were. What Jake could do with his mind was more advanced than the most sophisticated quantum computers in the world. Jake showed Kate and Ryan his research notes and computer files. He had documented everything carefully, including his theories about human quantum sensitivity. Jake explained that he believed humans had evolved these abilities millions of years ago, but they had been dormant for most of human history. Ryan was still suspicious of Jake. He asked Jake why he had been hiding his abilities and research. Ryan wanted to know if Jake was working with foreign governments or planning to sell his discoveries to enemies of the United States. Jake laughed and shook his head. He told Ryan that he had been hiding his abilities because he was afraid people would think he was crazy or dangerous. Jake said he had never shared his secret with anyone except his roommate Alex, and that had happened by accident. Kate began to realize that Jake was telling the truth. She could see that he was genuinely trying to help them understand his situation. Jake was not acting like a criminal or a spy. He seemed like a young scientist who had made an incredible discovery and did not know what to do with it. Jake made an offer to Kate and Ryan. Instead of treating him like a criminal, Jake suggested that the FBI could work with him to study and understand his abilities. Jake said he believed his discovery could help all of humanity, but only if it was handled carefully and responsibly. Kate was faced with a decision unlike any she had made in her career. Jake clearly had abilities that were beyond normal human capabilities, but he did not seem to be a threat to national security. Instead, Jake might represent an opportunity for humanity to take a giant leap forward in evolution and technology. Kate told Jake that she would need to contact her supervisors before making any decisions, but she also promised Jake that she would recommend working with him instead of arresting him. Kate realized that they were not dealing with a criminal, but with the next stage of human development. 6 months after his confrontation with the FBI, Jake Miller found himself working in a place he never imagined he would see. The underground research facility was hidden beneath a mountain in Colorado, far from any city or town. The government had built this secret laboratory specifically for studying Jake's abilities and the quantum future of humanity. Jake's life had changed completely since that morning when Agent Kate Morrison and her team had surrounded him at Stanford. Instead of being arrested or treated like a criminal, Jake had been invited to lead the most important scientific research project in human history. The government had created a special program called Project Quantum Dawn, and Jake was its director, agent. Kate Morrison had become much more than just Jake's FBI contact. She was now his friend, his protector, and his partner in running the project. Kate had left her old job investigating criminals to become the security coordinator for quantum human research. She made sure that Jake and his team were safe and that their discoveries would be used to help humanity instead of harm it. The research facility was amazing. It had laboratories filled with the most advanced quantum physics equipment in the world. There were living quarters for the scientists and staff who worked there. There was even a small hospital where doctors could study the health effects of quantum abilities. Jake felt like he was living in a science fiction movie. But the most exciting part of the facility was not the equipment or the buildings. It was the people. Jake was no longer the only human with quantum abilities. Over the past 6 months, he had helped awaken quantum sensitivity in 12 volunteer subjects. Each person had developed slightly different abilities, but all of them were incredible. The first volunteer was a woman named Lisa Park, who was a computer programmer before joining the project. When Jake helped awaken her quantum sensitivity, Lisa discovered she could communicate directly with computer systems using her mind. She could make programs run faster, fix software bugs instantly, and even create new code just by thinking about it. Another volunteer was a man named Tom Rodriguez, who had been a pilot in the Air Force. Tom's quantum abilities allowed him to sense electromagnetic fields around aircraft and weather systems. He could predict storms and turbulence hours before they happened. Tom could also navigate perfectly even when all his instruments were broken, because he could feel the Earth's magnetic field directly. Dr. Sarah Kim had been a medical researcher before volunteering for the project. Her quantum abilities let her see the quantum fields inside living cells. Sarah could detect diseases at the molecular level long before they showed any symptoms. She could even help the body's natural healing processes work faster and more effectively. Each volunteer's abilities were different, but they all shared one important thing. They were still completely human. They had the same emotions, the same personalities, and the same values they had before awakening their quantum sensitivity. The abilities did not change who they were as people. They just gave them new tools to understand and interact with the world. Jake worked with Kate and a team of ethicists to create strict rules for how quantum abilities could be used. They agreed that the abilities should never be used to hurt people or gain unfair advantages over others. The quantum-sensitive humans would focus on applications that could help all of humanity, like advancing science, medicine, and technology. One of the most important discoveries was that quantum-sensitive humans could work together in ways that regular humans could not. When 2 or more quantum-sensitive people focused on the same problem, their abilities seemed to strengthen each other. They could share thoughts and insights directly through quantum field connections. Jake and his team used this collaborative ability to solve scientific problems that had puzzled researchers for decades. They developed new materials that were stronger and lighter than anything ever created before. They designed more efficient solar panels that could capture energy from quantum fluctuations in space. They even created computer processors that worked faster than the speed of light by using quantum entanglement. The medical applications were perhaps the most exciting. Dr. Sarah Kim and her team learned to use quantum sensitivity to treat diseases that had been considered incurable. They could repair damaged DNA at the quantum level. They could help the immune system identify and destroy cancer cells more effectively. They even found ways to slow down the aging process by maintaining quantum coherence in human cells. But Jake knew that the most important work was still ahead of them. The project's long-term goal was to safely awaken quantum sensitivity in more humans around the world. They had identified approximately 50,000 people who showed signs of having dormant quantum abilities. These people came from every country, every culture, and every background. The team had developed a safe process for awakening quantum sensitivity that took about 3 months of careful training and preparation. The process involved exposing volunteers to specific quantum field frequencies while teaching them meditation and mental focus techniques. Not everyone who tried the process was successful, but about 70% of people with dormant abilities could be awakened. Jake and Kate worked together to plan how quantum-sensitive humans would be integrated into society. They knew that the world was not ready to learn about quantum humans all at once. The revelation would have to happen gradually over many years. They would start by placing quantum-sensitive people in key positions in science, medicine, and technology where they could make important contributions. The project had already begun this process quietly. Lisa Park had returned to Silicon Valley, where she was working for a major technology company. Her quantum-enhanced programming abilities were helping to create the next generation of artificial intelligence systems. Tom Rodriguez was working with NASA, using his abilities to improve spacecraft navigation and weather prediction for space missions. Dr. Sarah Kim had joined a major medical research institute where she was developing new treatments for genetic diseases. Other quantum-sensitive humans were working in universities, government laboratories, and private companies around the world. They were all contributing to human progress while keeping their true abilities secret. Jake often stood in his laboratory, watching his team of quantum-sensitive researchers work alongside regular human scientists. He realized that this was just the beginning of humanity's quantum age. Within a few generations, quantum sensitivity might become as common as any other human talent. Humanity would develop abilities that seemed like magic today, but would be completely normal in the future. The implications were staggering. Humans with quantum abilities could potentially travel to distant stars by manipulating space-time at the quantum level. They could communicate instantly across vast distances using quantum entanglement. They could solve problems and create technologies that regular humans could never imagine. But Jake never forgot the most important lesson from his journey. The secret that had once isolated him from other people had become the key to bringing humanity together. Quantum sensitivity was not about being superior to other humans. It was about expanding what it meant to be human in the first place. As Jake looked toward the future, he felt excited and hopeful. Humanity was about to take its next great evolutionary step. The species that had once been limited to a single planet was developing the abilities needed to spread throughout the galaxy. Jake's hidden secret had become humanity's greatest gift to itself. The top student who had once feared discovery was now leading his species toward a quantum future among the stars.